Well, hello there, Dippers, and welcome back to episode 88 of the Knuckle Sammich podcast, the official MMA podcast of Sauce on the Side. As always, Dippers, I'm your host, Drake, joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Thomas R. Shackelford.
Good morning, everyone.
So, Mr. Shackelford, today we really have no fights to break down because this last weekend, obviously Super Bowl Sunday, UFC even knows that football stays king in the United States. So, we will have to break down and give your picks for UFC 247, headlined by Dominic Reyes and John Jones. So, producer, Mr. Shaventone, you know what to do. All right, Mr. Shackelford. So, no fights this last weekend. Obviously, you know, you were in the same predicament that I was with football last weekend.
Hold on. I just saw something on Twitter. Football. It says, yes. Football is still king. Super Bowl, 112 million views. And then some football teams I've never seen before, but they didn't look like they were wearing pads and they had tall socks on. 700 million views, and then the World Cup finals, more football I'm not familiar with, was 1.2 billion views.
That's fake news.
Yeah, I think they got their football mixed up.
Yeah.
So, I just saw that earlier, and you said football's king, and I figured I'd bring that up.
No, that's a lie.
We need to be clear.
Those numbers are skewed.
American football is king. That other football is soccer.
Yes, I think it's because they don't make as big as festivity of it, and there's more televisions where we have more people in front of the television.
Well, that and every country that's warm in the world can play soccer. That's where they get all their viewers from. I remember, 2006, I was down in Mexico, and we were on a resort. And there was just some random World Cup game. I think Mexico was pretty good this year. And now this is like 11:30 in the morning, and there was like 50 people in this random hotel bar just going insane. And like I'm watching it, and I'm thinking, God dang, all they've done is kick the ball back and forth for like 40 minutes. And every time they kicked it, they're like, ah! I'm like, there's not been a goal scored.
No.
So I'm happy fights are back on.
Yes.
I will say, were you last week I had you pick, you said Kansas City. Were you ever at all worried?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Dude, every time San Francisco ran the ball, it was like a 15-yard gain.
I would never worry.
They're up by 10 going into the
Patrick
fourth.
Mahomes, Andy Reid. My favorite thing to do this playoffs was as soon as Kansas City fell behind, just bet them.
Just bet them.
Because they were going to win the game.
Yeah,
Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. I took them one time, and they were 24-0 down.
That Tennessee
that was against the Texans. Yeah.
No, it was a fun game, funnest Super Bowl I've had watching in a while.
It was actually really fun. The way me and Leighton C referred to it, it was a good game with a great ending.
Yeah, I would have felt bad whoever lost, because I felt like to lose like that. For the 49ers, like that stings big time. But then I would have absolutely been sad for Andy Reid had he not won again. That would have been tough seeing those Andy Reid memes.
This was basically Black Beast versus who am I blanking on? The guy walking huge. I think he was a big Russian guy against Volkov, where you get hammered until the last 7 seconds, and then you throw the knockout punch.
Yeah, fun game though. But I'm ready to get back to fighting. And we got to say, football's not over, baby. XFL is coming up.
The XFL's just getting heated up. First games this weekend. Obviously UFC 247 is this weekend. Card's pretty good. When you look at the undercard, not a ton of names that jump off the page at you, but all around pretty solid card. Miles John, he's opening up early. He's always a fun guy to watch. What other fighters really catch your eye that aren't in the main card? I
really like that Andrea Lee. Lauren Murphy's tough as nails too. That'll be a fun one. And going through there, that Andre Ewells showed some promise back and forth a little bit. It's one of those cards. None of the names are going to jump out at you, but I imagine that most of these fights are going to be pretty close. They're going to be scraps.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of actually good fighters here. Alex Morano, Miles John, the Jimmy Rivera fight's canceled.
Yeah.
So that's
that was a little bit of a dent. That was going to be a big one.
Yeah. So obviously we'll just pick the main card. We'll start at the bottom, work our way to the top. First up, we have Mirsad Bektic taking on Dan Ige.
I think it's Ige.
Ige?
Yeah.
Bektic is a minus 145 favorite to Ige plus 115. Not really familiar with this Ige guy a whole lot, but is there any way he beats Mirsad Bektic this week?
You know, this fight I felt like was probably the toughest to pick off that main card. Ige is... They're a lot alike. About the only thing the two differences I saw in these guys was... Well, there's three differences. The one, Mirsad Bektic is he's built like a shit brick house. So if you look at him physically, you're gonna pick Mirsad every time. As far as stylistically, they're pretty close. They can fight well in the clinch, punch heavy, and they do go for takedowns. They like to be on top. They're not bottom guys. They're not pulling guard or anything like that. The biggest thing is Mirsad tends to throw his right hand like a laser beam, and Ige can get loopy with his. The biggest thing about him is their careers. Mirsad, we've talked about it before. He started early 2010s, like maybe even before that, but he only gets about one fight a year since like 2012. The most he's gotten in a year since then was 2 fights. I believe I had picked him to beat Josh Emmett this last go around, which was in July of 19, and Emmett knocked him out. The only other loss that I think really counts other than early in his career was Darren Elkins also got a knockout on him. The problem with that is Ige's 5'7", Mirsad's 5'8". We know Darren Elkins is taller than that, and I believe Emmett is also. It's a toss-up. I think I'm going to go the dog on this one. I think I'm going to go Ige. He has not fought as good competition. He has not been fighting as long. But right now, I think he's more in that groove of being a very hungry Las Vegas fighter that's building his way up. Whereas Mirsad's had this, you can't put your thumb on his career. He's always talked about going for the title, and I think physically and his style, he could get there. But just injuries and whatever's keeping him out of the cage, it's just hard to stay. It's almost like I'm going with the hot hand here. I feel like Ige is probably going to get this one.
That actually surprised me because I really don't know much about Ige.
I think he came off the Contender Series. Tough cat. I mean, it's going to be a toss-up. I just think you got to go with the guy that's been more active and that's just right now more invested in that life of being a fighter, which I'm not saying Mirsad's not. I don't know the dude. I just watching him fight, just knowing how many fights he gets a year since 10 years ago, that's, it's awesome he's still in the game, but at this point he's getting up there in age. Your reflexes aren't faster now than they were in 2013.
Right. So next up we have Derek Lewis taking on Ilir Latifi. Derek Lewis is a minus 260 favorite to Latifi, who is a plus 200 dog. We have Derek Lewis coming in, 4-1 in his last 5, only lost to Daniel Cormier. And you have Latifi coming in off back-to-back losses. Both of those losses were in light heavyweight. Is this the first time that he's actually fought heavyweight?
Yeah, this is a strange one.
This is a very weird fight because usually Latifi's just the huge guy at light heavyweight. Now he is just another guy at heavyweight. Is there any way that he figures this out and is able to beat Derek Lewis?
This is another strange one. Ilir Latifi, he's 5'8". So he's a big guy as far as muscular-wise.
He's a 5'8" heavyweight?
He's 5'8". Derek Lewis is 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". And Derek Lewis has slimmed down his last 2 fights. That back problem's not been an issue. The odds are, I'm going to say I'm going to say Derek Lewis wins this. I think the odds are a little heavy, though, because, I mean, how did Derek Lewis, when he loses, how does he generally lose? I mean, how did DC beat him? Just took him down over and over, wore him out.
Right.
And Mersad has Olympic level, like,
Latifi.
world, or, yeah, I'm sorry, what did I say?
Mersad.
Oh, I thought I said Rashad. Yeah, Latifi has world level wrestling. He's even trained with DC. So those odds, I feel like, are a little swollen on the Black Beast, because Latifi, he has the wrestling skills to get the big man down. Unlike DC, I don't know that he has the jiu-jitsu to keep Derek Lewis down and get the sub. I feel like this is going to be one that Derek Lewis is going to get taken down early and often, but as Latifi starts getting tired, and we know the Black Beast just kind of can take some breaks down there and hop up.
He just chills out when he's on bottom.
Yeah. I feel like early you're going to be like, oh, damn, the dog's, I'm going to start hammering the dog. Don't. I think the Black Beast hangs in there and then just kind of smothers. I don't know if he'll get a stoppage, though. I can't remember the last time Latifi got knocked dead, so we could be looking at a TKO or decision here for the Black Beast.
Yeah, I think it's going to play out exactly like you said. I think it's going to be one of those fights where you're looking at it and you're like, how is the guy who is obviously holds more body fat is the guy that is, has the better cardio?
Yeah.
Because I think Latifi's going to be, typical big strong guy, drag him down. Well, that takedown is going to take a lot out of his sails. Second round, we have Black Beast hop up and just pop him.
When you're 5'8" and 5'8" wide, you're 5'8" tall, 5'8" wide.
A bit like a bowling ball.
Yeah, you're lifting up a real 265-pound man that weighs 6'4". You get tired. If you can't hold him down once you get there, you're going to get tired.
Absolutely. So next up, we have probably the weirdest fight on this card.
Yeah.
I have no explanation to why this is, on the main card, let alone the third to last fight of the night. So we have Juan Adams versus Justin Tafa. Juan Adams is a minus 230 favorite to Justin Tafa, who's a plus 180 dog. Last time we saw Juan Adams, he had a very ugly performance against Greg Hardy. Ends up getting finished, basically trying to shoot a takedown and just gets punched out. Against Tafa, who realistically, he's only fought 4 times professionally now. Very strange fight to put on the main card.
Yeah.
But will this fight live up to main card expectations?
Look, I have no clue what this fight's going to bring. I'll tell you that. This is going to be like...
I wouldn't touch this fight.
No, do not put money on this fight. Total, these guys have 12 fights. Total. A few weeks ago we bet on... what's his name? The Anaconda... what the Russian that chokes everybody out. I'm blanking.
Alexei Oleinik?
Alexei Oleinik's got like 180 fights. These guys have 12. Alexei Oleinik's probably got more draws than these guys have total fights.
There's probably a good chance of that.
I don't know what's going to happen. Justin Tafa was 3-0, and I thought he was a guy because he's from the Australian area, Australia, New Zealand. I can't remember which one. He was 3-0, and I thought he was one that they were priming, because you got to get somebody in that market, and then he gets knocked out by a 6-0 dude. So, and like you said, Juan Adams coming off the Contender Series, they're talking about him like he's the heavyweight Dominic Cruz. And then he loses a super weird decision to a guy, and then he goes out against Greg Hardy, and he's really jabbing Greg Hardy up, and then he shoots a terrible takedown, and then just lays there and gets his fro pounded. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm gonna go with Juan Adams. He did change training camps. I follow him on Twitter. He did change training camps. I feel like he's a guy that just. He's kind of like a big kid, He's a big, inexperienced kid. Maybe this new camp can get him dialed in. Do not bet this fight. Don't even come near this fight. I am going to say Adams, but do not bet money on this.
No, I definitely agree with that. Do not touch this fight. This is the fight that, if it went any way, I would not be surprised, just because I have no idea how this fight's going to go. Next up, we have Valentina Shevchenko taking on Caitlin Chukagian.
whatever.
Yeah, I'm not great with the name. I've seen her fight several times. Obviously, she's 5-1 in her last 6. Only lost to Jessica I, where we have Valentina, who basically has been not even touched in any of her last fights. The odds kind of signify that. You have Caitlin Kukajan, who is plus 750 compared to Valentina Shevchenko is minus 1,400. Biggest odds of the night. Who do you like?
It's got to be Valentina. The only worry here is like Chookagian's last fight, where she just stood on the outside, just barely touched the girl and did the Bruce Lee like every time she punches.
I love that,
and I feel like that. I
feel like she grew up playing tennis.
Yeah, it's very tennis-like. That's better than a Bruce Lee, because he was, whoa, she's very tennis-like. We saw the Holly Holm Valentina fight where Valentina almost lost that fight, because that's kind of the route that Holly took. Just stayed away, used her length. Never, Chookagian's not going to KO her. She does not have power. She does not have the power to do that. Even Amanda Nunes didn't have it in 2 fights. So Chookagian, she's a good fighter, but she's like an outside pointed fighter, whereas Valentina is a little bit more of. She also, what I'm saying is, Valentina might get herself in trouble where this is a 5-round fight. Say she comes out there and Chookagian throws 80 strikes around, but Valentina, avoids every one of them and then hits 10 strikes around. But, 5 of them are leg kicks, a couple of them are body, a couple of them are head. Well, the judges are going to look at Caitlin screaming over there every punch and be like, oh, she dominated that round. That could be an issue. Other than that, there's just no way Valentina gets touched here.
Yeah, I think Valentina obviously has more routes to victory there. Just all around, just a better fighter.
She can't, to put in perspective, you remember her last fight against Liz Carmouche, where it was this weird, which I said it was going to happen, it was this weird, boring fight where Carmouche was trying to just ran the whole time, and when by the end you looked at the punch count, like, Carmouche was like, well, I hit her this many times, but it was like ground strikes to the thigh, where like Valentina took her down and that she was heel striking.
She was laying on her back and just hitting her.
And the strike count, like, she had more strikes than Valentina, but obviously the judges are like, you're just laying there kicking her in the leg. Like,
yes.
We can't have that happen standing, though, because that will skew them and maybe flip a decision here.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. Hopefully that's not the case, because
hopefully not.
I like the run that Valentina's on right now.
Oh, yeah.
Last fight we have, this is obviously the main event. You have 2 guys who, throw out the weird Matt Hamill loss that John Jones had, because that was a win. Yeah. 2 undefeated fighters. You have arguably the greatest of all time with John Jones, who's been on a tear since he's gotten back. He is a minus 500 favorite to Dominic Reyes, who's a plus 350 dog. Obviously, we're used to big odds whenever John Jones fights. Dominic Reyes kind of brings something to the table. Maybe that John Jones hasn't seen, where he's more of this just pure athlete more than actual great fighter. We saw in John Jones's, I think, last fight with Thiago Santos, like, hung in there toe-to-toe with John Jones. I feel like Dominic Reyes is not the same fighter as Santos, but he's just as athletic. He can hit just as hard, and he can keep John Jones at bay. Is there any way that Dominic Reyes figures out the code and beats John Jones?
He could. There's enough playbook on John Jones. These guys should be closing the gap. Thiago Santos did a really good job, but then you look at Anthony Smith, who just, Jones pitched a shutout. It wasn't even close. I have always been of the school of thought that his striking's not that good. When guys actually get in on him, he closes his eyes a lot, dips his head back, and just extends his arms. That's why he gets a lot of eye pokes. What he is good at is keeping the range with those teep kicks, and then when they do have to rush in, he can clinch well and elbow well and do things like that. But if it was a straight boxing match and he had the equal length with the guys, he'd be in trouble. He wouldn't be an undefeated world champ 100 times over. But this is life, and sometimes in life you get unfair advantages. And one of his is he's got he's got the biggest wingspan in the history of the UFC. That's including every 7-foot guy that's ever walked through there. Even maybe Simi Schilt back in the day, but that was probably before they measured. I think he's like 7 foot. So Dominic Reyes, southpaw, big left hand, big left high kick / body kick. But to think that he's going to catch Jones slipping enough like he did OSP or Weidman, to think that he's going to catch him slipping enough, I just haven't seen Jones dip that. I just haven't seen him dip that bad. Even in his fights, he's looked terrible. He's won. So I feel like this is one where Reyes is. I think this is going to be a wrestling heavy Jones. I think Reyes is probably athletically, he does have the speed advantage, the power advantage. Like I said, he's an NFL combine level athlete. Jones, I don't think is, but he's overall just a world class athlete, but not that from getting from A to B in a blink of an eye type guy. I think Jones, when Reyes comes in, I think Jones gets a body lock, gets a takedown, and I think he's going to hammer him out because he got so much shit. Against Anthony Smith, he took him down 1,000,000 times and just there was no defense, but he just rode him out. It was almost just like he was just demoralizing more than anything. He wasn't even trying to finish him. He was just riding him out. A little wrestling equivalency there. I feel like this one he's going to go for a finish. So
yeah, I do too. Especially in his last 7 wins, you have 6 decisions here, and what we knew about John Jones was that he was able to finish everybody.
Yes.
Prior to this. I mean, he only has nine career decisions. 6 has come in his last 7 fights. I think this is a time that, if John Jones wants to keep the attention of everybody, he has to go out there and finish this fight. I think there's 2 routes that I see this fight going. One being a John Jones just go out there, and I don't expect this to go to the cards, is what I'm saying.
No,
I either expect Dominic Reyes to catch him just one time and the fight to be over, or I expect John Jones, like you said, drag him down, beat him up, and just kind of put a lot of the skepticism to rest with John Jones. So do you think that John Jones is enough of a favorite, or that you view him enough of a lock to throw him into maybe a parlay with these fighters?
When I'm looking at this card, I think you got the 2 locks. Jones, Valentina, absolute locks. No reason to go against him. I wouldn't touch Juan Adams and Tafa, and then Mersad and the Derek Lewis. I think Derek Lewis is a pretty solid lock, but I'm not throwing him up there with the other 2. He's not the same level. So if you're looking at that, I think you got Ige and Lewis. Ige being our dog pick, Lewis being our 75-80% lock, and then the top 2 absolute locks. Parlay those guys somehow. Do not touch Juan Adams, Tafa. It's just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous fight that you just don't. There can't be a predictable outcome there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think the only question mark, is Ige, just because I really haven't seen him fight that much.
If I was going to bet, if I was going to do the parlay or try and add some people, I'd do the 2 locks, Derek Lewis, and then even that Mersad. If you're not feeling the dog on him, I won't hate you for going Mersad, but I do feel like Ige is going to pick up that dog win.
Yeah, I hope so, but just for betting purposes only here, we have Derek Lewis, Valentina, and John Jones, all people that you say lock, and $1 wins you 78 cents. So if all 3 of those are locks, you can put down a decent penny, and I feel like as long as you win the Derek Lewis fight, you're set.
Yeah.
So any other news or notes around, the MMA community, combat sports that you want to discuss before we wrap this show up?
We talked about it. You were talking about that grappling event coming up. Who was it? It was Rumble Johnson versus Curtis Blades.
Gary Tonin versus Dustin Poirier.
Gary Tonin versus Poirier, and then another cool one, which you didn't. You definitely downplayed it. You had Cyborg Abreu versus Rafael Lovato.
I just said it because, hey, Two Saucy Pod guests.
Yeah. So what's wild? Yes, Gary Tonin, Saucy former guest. But they've been on 2 times apiece, haven't they?
Yep.
Blades?
2 times?
2 times. So you got 2 former Saucy Pod guests. I would love to get the other 2 guys on. What's important there is Rafael Lovato just came out on Rogan last week and said, so he beat Mousasi for the Bellator 185-pound title, which was a big win. It was a dog win, which I told everybody to bet on. I don't know if you did or not, but if you did, you got a pretty good money. He just said he's effectively kind of retiring. He's got like kind of a brain disorder. So that kind of opens that back up in 185 in Bellator. So I guess he's still able to grapple fine. It's one of those weird things where his condition isn't necessarily life-threatening and he's not having any symptoms, but the doctors are playing it super safe and not like letting him fight type thing. So that grappling event will be pretty cool. You got the NCAA. I don't know if we watch enough college wrestling to do an NCAA preview. Maybe do like an NCAA highlights coming up.
We need an NCAA specialist.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who really watches the NCAA
Bill
more
Burr?
than Bill. Yeah.
Isn't he the guy that usually is doing the? Or which?
No, that's Baldwin.
Baldwin. That's it. Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, one of the Baldwin brothers. Unbelievable. I still remember the first year I heard it. I'm like, is that one of the Baldwins? Insane.
Yeah.
He was probably like me, like a 500 high school wrestler, and like just loves it so much. He's like, I think I can parlay my celebrity into getting free NCAA championship tickets every year until, as long as I don't do anything bad that celebrities do type thing.
Just keep your nose clean. You're set for life. You're the only guy who even has like any sense of relevance that pays attention to college wrestling.
At all.
So, next man up.
Yeah.
When are the NCAAs? They're coming up.
Yeah, I mean,
soon.
The Big Tens, I think,
guess
going to be in the next, or like the conference, the conference championships will be in the next couple weeks. I think it's usually like that second week of March. So we got about another month. We got another month of duels, and then the fun will begin. So.
Okay. All right. Anything else before we wrap this show up?
No, sir.
All right. Good luck this weekend. Hopefully we can make some cash. Hopefully Mr. Shackelford gave you 5 winners, including 1 lock dog of the week. And on that note, for Drake, for Mr. Shackelford, Dippers, as always, stay saucy.